now available in paperback. From the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Man Crisis, comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback at Amazon.com and online booksellers today. Historical Men in Crisis. One of my viewers wanted me to do another episode in the Historical Men in Crisis series. And for this installment in the Historical Men in Crisis series, I'm going to be talking about two mass murderers, Andrew Kehoe and Charles Lawson. All images in this video are used under fair use of United States copyright law of 1976. Now, the first historical man in crisis I'm going to be talking about is Andrew Kehoe. And your Andrew Kehoe is responsible for the Bath school disaster, which led to the deaths of 45 people, including Kehoe himself, and injured 38 people. And now most of the victims in the Bath school disaster were children from the 2nd to 6th grades, when the Bath school wound up exploding because your Andrew Kehoe allegedly placed dynamite and explosives in the school to blow it up after he wound up losing the election to treasurer. And once your Andrew Kehoe wound up losing the election to treasurer, this wound up destroying his smooth world, and with the destruction of his smooth world, he wanted to destroy the world around him. Now, your Andrew Kehoe was a man in crisis ever since he was very young, and ever since he was very young, whenever life didn't go his way, he looked to destroy the lives of others. Now, your Andrew Kehoe, back when he was younger and he found out that his mother wound up dying and his father possibly wound up marrying another woman that he did not like, it is alleged that his new wife Frances was severely injured in 1911 when the family stove exploded as she was attempting to light it. Now, after the stove exploded, his father's wife tried to go out here and tried to put out the fire, and Andrew Kehoe threw water on her, but because it was an oil-based fire, his father's new wife Frances wound up dying from her injuries, and there were allegations that the stove was tampered with, and that could have possibly been done because your Andrew Kehoe did study electrical engineering as he was going on to have his career early on as an electrician. So he could have possibly known how this stove worked and possibly tampered with this stove because he did not like the fact that his father wound up marrying another woman, Frances Wilder, that he did not like. And this type of behavior definitely fits the pattern and profile for a beta male, because when a beta male does not like someone, what the beta male will do is try to do harm to that individual to try to either take their life or do something to push them out of the social circle that they're in so that they cannot be in their presence because they're making their world rough. And that's possibly what happened with your Andrew Kehoe when he went out here and saw his father with another woman, because again, a lot of these beta males have codependent relationships with their mother, and when they see their fathers going out here getting another woman and going out here and making changes to their life that they don't like because it makes their world rough, they look to do harm to people. Now, this is what happened in 1911 before he went to Michigan to go out here and marry Nellie Price. And after he married Nellie Price, a daughter of a wealthy Lansing family, they bought a 185-acre farm. And as they bought this farm, your Andrew Kehoe was showing how dysfunctional he was, because while he was a highly intelligent man, he grew extremely impatient and angry with anyone who disagreed with him. And this is, again, another trait of a beta male, because a lot of times when beta males run into people who disagree with them, what they do is they become extremely impatient, and what they do is go out here and start taking things personally with those who disagree with them. Whereas most other people will listen to the counterpoint of somebody that disagrees with them. What the beta male will do is get angry at those people because, again, this is a person who is disrupting their smooth world. And in their smooth world, because these men think like women, they think that everything that they say has to be right, but they don't understand that you're allowed to have to disagree with people, and people have a right to have their own opinions. And that's another trait of beta males. They want their opinion to be the only opinion, and that's an issue as related to a beta male. They want their opinions to be the only thing that have to be. And again, another trait of a beta male that Andrew Kehoe had was that he was always neat and dressed meticulously, and wanted to change his shirt whenever it became slightly dirty. And again, that's all traits that beta males have, because again, beta males want their smooth world. They want everything to be perfect. They want everything in their life to be absolutely right, and they want everything to be absolutely create a world where they have absolutely no problems, no obstacles, and no issues. And that's the one problem with many of your beta males. They want everything to be just right, and they go out here and they want everything to be fit absolutely in every place so that they don't have any conflicts or obstacles. But that's not how life works. And when things in Andrew Kehoe's life possibly weren't working out, what he would do was take out his frustration on those who had less power than he did. So a lot of neighbors recounted how your Andrew Kehoe was very cruel to his farm animals and even once beat a horse to death. And again, beta males are known for participating in violence against children, animals, and women because they have less power than they have. And this is how they get their power in situations, because they're frustrated because sometimes somebody disagreed with them. Sometimes somebody said something that they didn't like, or things didn't work out. And in order to take out their frustrations, they go out here and attack a animal or a person who has less power than they do. Now, this being cruel to farm animals and even beating a horse to death is a red flag, because this is the type of behavior that a serial killer participates in before they go out here and participate in mass murder. But sadly, people back in the early 20th century did not have that information. But here in the 21st century, we would look at a guy like an Andrew Kehoe and see the red flag as related to him. So he was out here, he's just a guy who was just out here, he was angry and frustrated about his life, even though he had some success. And the thing that upset him was the fact that he couldn't make the world perfect like he wanted. And again, he was out here calling himself an injustice collector, and his behavior reminds me a lot of Elliot Rodger, who was holding slights and grudges, and he even had a sign on a fence talking about, criminals are made, not born. Again, this man held a lot of grudges against people. He had a lot of issues with people, and he just held what he called these injustices as he collected them. He was basically participating in what I call beta male rage. And what the beta male does when he's angry is he holds on to grudges for extended periods of time, and he holds on to those grudges even though those people have forgotten about it. He still holds on to it to make himself feel like a victim and have a justification for attacking those individuals. Now, as your Andrew Kehoe was living in Michigan, he was elected treasurer of the Bath Consolidated School Board, and he fought for lower taxes and cross purposes with other board members and other things. And he oftentimes got called for adjournments when he didn't get his way. Now, whenever people disagree with a beta male and things don't go their way, they oftentimes try to just take their ball and run away. And again, what they do is go after people because they don't want anybody to disagree with them. And it looks like your Andrew Kehoe had an issue with a superintendent, Emery Hayek, who he accused of financial mismanagement. So this beta male had a lot of grudges, and again, those grudges lead to these men simmering and boiling in anger for extended periods of time, and it leads to them becoming more and more frustrated, and eventually these men wind up exploding in rage. Now, while your Andrew Kehoe was on the school board, he was elected Bath Township clerk for a short period, and in 1926, when he ran for the position full-time, he got defeated, and once he got this defeat, this was what it led to the triggering of the rage, which led to the Bath school disaster. Now, your Andrew Kehoe, again, a beta male, once he wound up losing, this was the worst thing that could ever happen to a beta male, because beta males do not like to lose. When it comes down to beta males, if they wind up losing, especially in a very public fashion, this winds up making these men extremely angry because their whole smooth world has been destroyed, and because they cannot be perfect anymore, what happens is that these men start to get angry and start to take it personal. And one of his neighbors thought, oh, Kehoe was going to be planning his murderous revenge against the community for rejecting him for this position. And this basically is what beta males do whenever they lose. They don't just go out here and just take the L. No, they want to destroy the world around them. And they want to destroy the world around them because they are being seen as imperfect. And because they're being seen as imperfect, they want to go out here and hurt all of those who saw all of their flaws. Now, your Andrew Kehoe, he was so caught up in his feelings about losing, he could not see that his wife was ill with tuberculosis and had frequent hospital stays. In fact, he didn't really even care about his wife at that point, and he stopped making mortgage and homeowners insurance payments because he was so caught up in his feelings about being slighted by all of the people in Bath Township that he wanted to sit there and plan his revenge. And he planned that revenge by going out here and murdering his wife after she returned from the hospital. And after he wound up murdering his wife, he moved her body into a farm building before blowing up the house and farm buildings. And after this, he then arranged for some time bombs to go off in the brand new school building, and the entire north wing of the building had exploded, killing many children and some adults. And your Andrew Kehoe, after again blowing up the school, then drove over to the school with a truck filled with shrapnel and blew up his truck and wound up killing more people, including a boy who survived the building. And when I look at the behavior of your Andrew Kehoe, it really reminds me a lot, again, of your Tim McVeigh, who participated in the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995. Even though the motives were different, the actions were done, and again, show the beta male and his dysfunction. But your Andrew Kehoe's motive for murder was because he couldn't have his smooth world. He was going to make everybody else's world in Bath Township miserable, and he was going to make everybody suffer for going out here and preventing him from rising to that high position that he wanted, where he could go out here and be the Bath Township clerk. Since he couldn't be the Bath Township clerk, he was going to make all of Bath Township pay by making everybody's life as miserable as his was. And again, he was doing this because he was a man who never had the male life skills or male survival skills to understand that life is rough. In life, you have to take losses. And what makes a man of character is the fact that he can go out here and take a loss and move on. And again, your Kehoe, he was out here looking to destroy the world, and he was looking to destroy the world because he didn't know how to function in it. Now, some people say he had a motive for destroying his farm because he couldn't pay for it. But if he had sold his unused equipment and materials, he would have had enough to pay off the mortgage. This is similar to what happened with John List, who murdered his family because he was in debt but didn't see the $100,000 chandelier in his home. Many of these beta males, they can't see what's in front of them because many beta males don't know how to problem solve. No, they blame others for their problems, and because they blame others for their problems, they never take the action that can help them. And many of these men don't want to take any responsibility because something is somebody else's fault, when sometimes it's just the way life works. But you can't explain this to a beta male, and sadly nobody could explain this to an Andrew Kehoe. He was a man who basically destroyed the lives of others because he did not know how to function in his own life. Now, the second historical man in crisis I'm going to be talking about is Charles Lawson. And your Charles Lawson was a North Carolina sharecropper who murdered his wife and 6 of his 7 children in Germantown, North Carolina on Christmas Day. Now, in the days before Christmas of 1929, your Charles Lawson took his wife and their 7 children to take a family portrait after they bought some new clothes. Now, this would be an odd occurrence for a rural working class family, but these actions could have shown that your Charles Lawson's actions were premeditated. Now, your Charles Lawson, before he wound up murdering his family, sent his oldest son, who was 19 years old, Arthur, on an errand. And as Arthur was on this errand, he wound up murdering his wife and 6 of his 7 children. Now, after murdering his family, your Charles Lawson then went out and shot himself with a 12-gauge shotgun and wound up taking his own life. And the only survivor was his eldest son, who was on that errand before the crime was committed. Now, when I took a critical examination of your Charles Lawson, he definitely fit the pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in The Man Crisis, and he definitely was one of these beta males who fits the pattern I talk about in the chapter, The Sexual Deviancy of the Beta Male, because your Charles Lawson was an alleged sexual deviant who was molesting his daughter, and as he was molesting his daughter wound up pregnant. And because your Charles Lawson did not want his smooth world disrupted, what he did was go out here and murder his entire family in order to make sure no one found out about his sexual deviancy or could hold him accountable for his sexual deviancy. And this is the kind of behavior that beta males participate in, because many beta males are afraid of their own masculinity, and because they are afraid of their own masculinity, they believe the only place they can express their masculinity is in a place I call the secret world. And in that secret world, many of these men express themselves in what are masculine ways, in deviant fashions, and this man participated in one of the most egregious acts of sexual deviancy, going out here and violating his own daughter. And by violating his own daughter in this sick and depraved fashion, he was doing this in secret and looking to keep it a secret until his daughter wound up pregnant. And when he realized that his daughter was going to was pregnant and was going to blow the lid off of his secret sexually deviant behavior, this is when your Charles Lawson looked to go out here and destroy the world around him, because he did not want anybody to know that he was out here participating in deviant sexual acts. And because he was participating in deviant sexual acts, what he did was go out here and look to destroy any evidence of him being sexual. And what he did in order to destroy that evidence was go to the extreme of looking to destroy the lives of his wife and all of his children. And he did this because, again, he wanted to go out here and cover up his sexual deviancy. he did not want people to see his alleged sexual deviancy, and he wanted to keep his world smooth. So in order to keep people from seeing the shame of his sexually deviant behavior, he went out here and participated in the mass murder of his family. Now, this makes logical sense to the beta male, because he believes that since he's gone out here and participated in this heinous crime, people won't see how sick and depraved he is. But the thing is that we see how sick and completely depraved that he is, because only a sick and depraved individual is going to go out here and abuse a child in one of the most reprehensible fashions and believe that this is naturally masculine behavior. No, this is not natural masculine. This is deviant behavior. It's sick and perverted, and trying to cover it up with a murder just shows how sick this individual is, and that's how sick a guy like a Charlie Lawson is. I mean, he was a complete deviant, and again, participated in the murder of his family for two reasons. One was to go out here and keep his world smooth, because he did not want to deal with being accountable for the perverted sexual molestation of his daughter. And two, he wanted to go out here and avoid having to deal with the criminal justice system, which would have possibly put him in prison for the rest of his life if a lynch mob back in 1929 had not gotten a hold of him and hung him and burned him for the evil and depraved acts that he was out here participating in. I mean, this was one of the sickest males I have ever read about, but it fits the pattern and the profile again for your beta males, because this man is just, again, was one of the sickest individuals, because he killed toddlers, he killed babies. I mean, this man was just a complete monster, but this is the kind of monster that a beta male is, because a beta male will go to all kinds of extremes in order to maintain their smooth world. And again, this familiar side, again, reminds me a lot of one I just talked about in Utah. And again, beta males, whenever their world gets disrupted, whenever their world winds up damaged, whenever things don't go right in their world, they look to destroy the lives of others in order to, like in the case of this Charles Lawson, cover up the problems that they're having and cover up their failures. They go out here looking to cover up all the evil that they do, and they're hoping that by destroying the evidence, people won't see that the things that they've done, and that's what they think that they're doing. But it just exposes how sick and twisted these individuals are, because in the case of your Charles Lawson, he just shows how just, again, depraved that he is. And what's even more troubling is that many family members also allegedly knew that he was doing this to his daughter, and nobody looked to hold this man accountable for the monstrous behavior he was participating in. And again, just shows how sick this individual was. And again, when I look at both of these men, your Andrew Kehoe and your Charles Lawson, they are historical men in crisis, and they show us how your beta males have been doing damage for generations. Now, these were incidents that were taken in the past, but when we look at the pattern and profile of the behavior, it fits right in line with the behavior of other beta males I have talked about, and how these men, whenever their lives wind up not going the way that they want, whenever their world winds up in a rough place, these men don't have the discipline and resolve to persevere. And because they don't have the discipline and resolve to persevere, what they do is go out here and look to destroy the world around them, like your Andrew Kehoe did by he wanted to destroy the entire Bath Township and get revenge on the township. Or in the case of your Charles Lawson, he wants to go inward and hurt his family because he's having issues as related to being a sexual deviant. And instead of going out here and dealing with those issues, he goes to look to destroy his family and take his own life because he doesn't want to take responsibility. But in both cases, we have historical men in crisis who can show us how far back the pattern and profile for beta males go, and how far back this pattern and profile go that show us how deep this dysfunction lies in all of these historical men in crisis. Now, if you want to learn more about the dysfunctional behavior of beta males and what leads to them to participate in the kind of violence that they participate in and be the dysfunctional individuals that they are, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers like Smashwords, Barnes & Noble, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me make more videos in the Historical Men in Crisis series, you can send a donation to the Cash App or the PayPal. And if I know something about that historical man in crisis, I will make that video for you. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today.